So today I'm going to be demonstrating for you how to do a training test with your students. These training tests are designed really for our younger students who need experience in the testing environment, experience with different test item types. So as you can see here, this is the teacher landing page. And I am impersonating an elementary teacher. You can see her students here. Notice that the names and the ID numbers have hashtags. That is because we are in demo mode, and that is intended to protect the personal information of these students. All right, so doing the training test really involves two things. One is setting you up as a teacher to model the training test on a screen. And then the second part is you releasing the training test to your students so that they can have the experience of signing on, going into a test, and then taking that test. All right, so let's do step one, which is setting you up with a training test. And I'm going to go ahead and close this tab right here. So we're going to go to tests, and when we click on that, it opens up a menu. And for the demonstration part that you'll be doing, we're going to go to Test Center. I'm going to right click on that because I want to open that in a separate tab. And I want to do that because I want to be able to model the test in one tab and then assign the test in another tab. All right, so this is the test center page, and normally you would see hundreds of tests. So any test that is available to the grade level and subject that you teach, those tests will all be listed here. In this case, I'm making this video in July, and so I've opened up the window for a few tests in July just for the purpose of making this video. So you can see 3 tests available, and one of these is the training test for primary. There's also an intermediate one. We're going to do the primary one together. So again, this is setting you up to model the test. So all we're going to do is go over here to this square with the triangle in it. It's called OLA Preview, and I'm going to click on that button. Notice it opens in another window. And this is quite literally what students will see when they sign into the test. It'll say, welcome, Angela, whatever. And then they will see all the tests that are available to them. It's also why you want to assign tests right before you're going to give them, because they will see any tests assigned to them. All right, so let's go back to our first tab. Again, this is your landing page as a teacher. And this time we're going to set it up to assign the test to all of these students. So I'm going to click test. And this time, instead of going to the test center for modeling, I'm going to go to OLA student status. OLA stands for online administration. I'm going to click on that. This is the page where you will assign a test and monitor the progress of your students. All right, so we have a drop-down menu, and again, because there are only 3 tests, this is really, really easy to see what's available. Normally, you're going to go to your Canvas portal, the curriculum portal, and your subject and your grade level to get the ID number of the test, just to be sure you're giving the right test. But in this case, there are only 3, and I know that I want to give the training test for primary, so I'm going to click on that. Now, I'm an elementary teacher in this case, so I don't have to do any filtering. I can just hit apply filter, and I'm going to see all of my students. But if I were a secondary teacher, I would want to go to class and select the class that I'm releasing the test to. Again, I'm an elementary teacher. Oops, sorry, close that. So I only have my 20 to 30 students. I'm going to hit apply filter. Here they all are. There are 49, so this teacher must have more than one class assigned to them. Perhaps they have a shared class with another teacher. All right. So here is where we assign this test. And you can see right now there's 49 unassigned. And if I went to this drop down, I could release all 49 to the test. And that's what makes it visible for students. I also could come over here and just pick select students. Go to choose action and release it to only those 3. Or another option would be to click on this box above the list, select everyone, and release it. So you have different ways to manage all of these students. I'm going to go ahead and go to this unassigned box, and I'm just going to release them. All right, now they're all assigned. Notice their status is assigned. I will tell you, over the years, we've had people call and say, I really don't know if the test got assigned. And I can guarantee if it says assigned, has a star here, it's assigned. Now, as soon as the student opens up the test, they're going to move to in progress. It'll say in progress here, and then it'll tell you how many questions they've answered right here. And then once they submit the test, it's going to pop over to submit. And about 15 minutes later, it'll go to finished. In that 15 minutes, that's when all the mechanical scoring takes place. I will say also just that you have the ability to move kids around even after you assign them. So I can go here and I can unassign them. And when they're in progress, I can either lock them or submit the tests. And when they're submitted, I can move them back to in progress. So let's say a student doesn't finish at the end of a period or a day. You can take those in progress students and lock them until the next day so that they're not working at home on the test. All right, so all of your students have their tests up. And if they go to student tools under Everett Public Schools, student tools, look for the big P, performance matters. Then they're going to sign in. I'm not going to impersonate a student, but they're going to sign in and they will see a page just like this. All right, so your students have the test and you are displaying the test on a projector so that they can see it. And this is your chance to walk them through and talk to them about test taking skills. And again, just emphasizing, this is not a test that is a legitimate Common Core well-made test. It is just designed to give kids experience with the tools. All right, so I'm going to click start. The first thing I see are my tools that are available to me. So the person who designed this test has set up a choice eliminator so they can cross off wrong answers to narrow down their choices. They've set up a highlighter, a way to clear the highlighting, and then a way to flag a question so you can go back to it. I'm going to go up here to my circle with my name on it. There are also some accessibility tools that are available to me. Black text on white, white text on black, and screen magnification. I will tell you, this is probably the biggest troubleshooting call we get in our office, that a student can't see the next button or the submit button. And the problem is they've magnified the screen way, way, way too big. And there's my connection status. So now I'm going to hit start and I'm going to be taken into the test. Now, again, over here, we have our accessibility and we have our tools. Here are those tools: line focus, highlighter, choice eliminator. It looks like one more was added inside the test. And then for accessibility, enlarge the test. as it is read out loud. Make a selection on the page and click this button for a picture dictionary definition. This is a word dictionary definition. This is translation. So if I click this button, I have to select words first, excuse me. If I click this button, I'm seeing it in Spanish. So it'll translate that as in Spanish. But I can go to my settings and change the translation to any one of these languages. If it has a bell, it'll also read it to you. If there's no bell, it'll just spell it for you. So if I change this to Czechoslovakian and I select my words, oops. I translate. Czechoslovakian. So I should have set up my extension ahead of time, and your student would have done that, by the way. All right. So first question here is click on the group that has more dots. So this is one item type, and all the student has to do is click. They can only click one answer. When they are satisfied, they click next. Now, let's say they get to the second question. They're like, oh, whoops, I made a mistake. They can always go back using the drop-down menu. They can also go back using the previous bar. All of our tests are set up to pause, so a student can come back on another day and finish it. So there's a pause button down here. So these are drop-down menu questions. In the picture below, there are how many yellow shapes, and they select the number 3, and green shapes 2, and then they move forward. This is a matrix where students have to select the answer by putting a check mark or marking the box. So we have our animals down the side, and then house, outside, or outside and house, both. Notice we have words and pictures. This is for younger students, so we want to make it as accessible as possible. So some animals are pets, some are wild, some could be both. Mark the box that best shows where an animal lives. A dog lives inside, an elephant lives outside, and a bird, this parrot, could be either. Now notice that when I click on this box and this box, it allows me to do it. So it's important to give students good test taking skills, which is, make sure that you're giving one response to select, whether or not the animal belongs in each of these. And I know that a student could say, house and outside, and argue that it's both. You could certainly change the score, later, but we want them to say both. We don't want them to use 2 buttons. One other thing that I will say is with this one, often with the Chromebook, the picture might be a little bit bigger. So this is a good chance for you to show students how to scroll up and down so they see the whole problem. So if they're only seeing half of this bird, they should scroll up and see the whole bird. All right, this is a matching problem, and this is a great opportunity for you to explain to students that it doesn't matter which order you put the answers in, that it will be right. So 1 dog, 1, 3 dogs. It doesn't matter what order it's in, it will be correct. This is an order problem. So this is usually asking students to maybe read a passage and say, what are the, in what order did these things happen? And they could be a picture, or for older students, they could be words. And all the student has to do is drag and drop. Seed, seedling, tree. Also, the order could be up and down instead of horizontal, just depends on what the test builder used for that. So this is a drawing problem, and write the number 6 on the lines. And so the student can pick a color if they want, or you could tell them just use black at your discretion. And then they can change the size depending on what they feel most comfortable with. If they make a mistake, they can clear it, or they can undo it. And they can use their trackpad, their mouse, I'm using a mouse now, so mine's a little bit squiggly. Or if they have a stylus or a finger, a screen that takes touch, they can use that as well. If they don't like it, they can always come back and fix it. I like that one, but I want that to curve up a little bit. All right. So this is a question with 2 problems, and students are going to see this both on the state assessment, but also on end of unit assessments. This problem has 2 parts. Be sure to scroll down and answer the second part. Our test builders use that phrase very often, those phrases very often, to alert students. So be sure that students are reading the question carefully. Jada and her mom went out for ice cream. Jada got 1 scoop of ice cream. Her mom got 1 scoop of ice cream. How did they get together? So this is short answer, and a student might type 2. They could write the answer 2. And then show your thinking using numbers, words, or drawings. And so again, I'm going to pick my problem 1 plus 1 equals 2. Or I could do draw a little cones here. All right. Now, for teachers, drawing, extended text, and file uploads are the only ones you have to score. The rest of them are automatically scored for you. So when you finish this test, if it were a legitimate test and you were scoring it, you would just go in and look at only this answer for scoring. Very, very fast. All right, last question here. Read the story and answer the question. Be sure to scroll down. There are 3 parts to this question. Make sure you answer each part. So in this type of a question, we have the writing here and the questions over here. So students are able to see both. All right, the first is, what happened to Matt first? Matt put a paper hat on. Matt saw Sam's hat. Matt found paper and tape. Matt found scissors. So they both have a hat on. Matt wants to have a hat, so he must have seen Matt's hat first. There we go. Click on the sentence that tells you what Matt thought of Sam's hat. And then this is directly from the text, and they have to pick which phrase. And then finally, drag the word to show how Matt felt when he made his paper hat. So I'm going to say Matt felt happy, and I just pull the word over. And that's all there is to it. So as you do this, then your students should be following along and putting their answers in as well. You don't have a submit button because teachers don't submit for scoring, but your students will. So make sure that they submit at the end. And you'll be able to see on the OLA status page how many they've answered, who's submitted, who's finished. And of course, you don't have to score this. It's a training test, but it can also be a training test for you for scoring. And so watch the scoring video on how to do that. And then again, 15 minutes later, the students will go to finished. So hoping that you will do a training test with your students to give them some experience in this environment and really see that these tools are very easy to use. Of course, one of the benefits for you is that you can spend your time analyzing the results and thinking about instruction instead of grading multiple choice questions. So again, stay tuned for the video on scoring. If you have any questions or you'd like any training, please contact the Assessment and Research Department at 4051 or email Catherine Matthews, Director of Assessment and Research. Thanks.